8:34 News and Views moving along. My next guest is Amand Hlela. He is a student of international relations and state security, Master of Arts with a deep interest in history and Islamic studies. We're going to be talking about the illusion of choice and the reality of controlling South Africa. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program, or shall I say assalamu alaikum to you?
Assalamu alaikum. See you as well. Thank you for having me this
Okay.
morning.
Lovely to have you. Just before we get to the heart of the matter, let's talk about your interest in history and particularly Islamic studies. Are you Muslim?
Well, part of my family is, but also I'm just interested in history and Islamic studies because apart from the shared history that I believe we do have, our cultures are very similar in what they dictate and what they expect for social standards, social norms. In fact, up until we deal with the matters of law for our people. So those two are similar. And also in terms of just general history, global control and power in the world, and how it expresses itself today is also a great interest to me, particularly monetary policies and whatnot. I'm very interested in that. Yeah.
And so you would be, very especially with your deep interest in Islam, knowing that it's a very just religion. It's all about equality and justice in every aspect of life.
Yeah.
So, yes, you are on the right path, Alhamdulillah. When I realized I'll be talking with you this morning about the illusion of choice and the reality of control in South Africa, and there has been murmurings about the fact that America has been meddling in our elections that has just gone by. A lot of people have dismissed it as conspiracy theories. But I think the deeper you look into the situation, you do realize that it's not a conspiracy theory. I think we need to look at the rest of Africa and see how the majority of Africa, or all of Africa, was colonized over the years. Some of the countries, or most of those countries, have achieved their independence. But it seems as if the Western world still pull the strings as far as who is in place to lead those countries, because very few of the African countries are really determined, self-ruled, and are truly independent. They're very, very reliant on America, the UK, and other Western countries. So we can't dismiss the fact that this is a conspiracy theory. How did you come to the realization that this is in fact happening and has happened as far as our elections have taken place, and moving forward, the impact of us here in South Africa?
I mean, I must agree with everything you've said, and then I would extend the same to say that it's not just Africa, but it's the world in general, because it's sort of we've all been roped into this monetary system that sort of gives a certain group of people power and control over everybody, and even the nations that you would see and think from the outside that they are doing well, perhaps that they are independent. But when you start scrutinizing their internal policies and how, I mean, I would look at Pakistan for instance. Um, it's the same situation, perhaps with different expression, but it's the same situation. And in terms of how I come into sort of this, is that I think as a child as well, I've always been suspicious of world systems and how they sort of control our lives. And I remember saying, I think it was to my geography teacher, is that there's something wrong in essay and how we sort of write. It's almost as if we don't have common interests, like human needs are not the same. In how there's always a group working against the needs of the society, perhaps for the interests of the few. So when it comes to this government of national unity, we're sort of anticipating it because we've sort of been seeing the trends moving forward up until now. I mean, you can go back and from 2017, what has been going on in South Africa and the world. So this was not a surprise to me and many people around me who sort of are paying attention to what's happening in the country, whether you're talking about economics, the social challenges of the country. It sort of was expected. I mean, the DA was sort of leading us towards that thought. And our media also is not helping, as you sort of see in my opinion. I speak about the media and the role they play in shaping our minds and our opinions and our perceptions as a people.
And there's been talk for a long time, and we know that as a given, that the media, different media houses have been captured by different interest groups, and they will obviously spin that narrative. So, that is the one reality. The other reality, then, also is you talk about the electoral process in South Africa having been reduced to a mere formality, a spectacle intended to provide the illusion of freedom and self determination. That's part two of the narrative I'm putting to you. And part three would be there's a lot of talk, very strong talk, about John Steenhuisen becoming the vice president of South Africa. And I don't think we should take that lightly. We shouldn't be dismissing it, because that is a possible stark reality as far as the government of national unity is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, in my opinion, is that these are not recent plans, or it's not something that has just been thought of last year or even this year. It's something old. I mean, when de Klerk passed away, well, months before that, he sort of made an opinion that if Cyril Ramaphosa is elected, it will change everything. And I think his son also went on a conference soon after that, saying that the NC doesn't understand what they've done for this country. Um, and his father died a happy man based on those actions. So that sort of tells you that there is a lot of thinking that has gone behind this. A lot of systems have been put in place to make sure that we arrive at this very moment that we are in now. And there are many things that are to come that perhaps the public is not aware of yet. And the media will sort of program the people to sort of be accepting to or receptive to those ideas when they are put forward. So as scholars and people who are interested in politics, particularly this type of politics, um, you sort of just have to keep up and follow through. Whether you want to form a counter movement, then that sort of is there for you as well to sort of interpret how you go about, because these are not new plans, unfortunately for us.
Okay, you talk about the active word there in your response to me, and that is a counter movement. Let's play on that. When you talk counter movement, I'm beginning to wonder. We were hysterical about the Guptas and state capture. It does tell us that we've been captured, apart from the Guptas, by white monopoly capitalists, the UK and the US, and the Western world at large. It suits and serves their interests to have captured us, and this is going to be ongoing. How then? How then does the MK fit into all of this? Because Zuma comes with a legacy of his dealings with the Guptas and state capture in during his tenure.
Yeah,
What is the current scenario saying to us with their phenomenal win as far as the elections are concerned?
I think it's what you're saying now is very important, that we must first accept that we have been captured. Perhaps not by the people we think have captured us, like the Guptas, as you may say. So once you've accepted that we've been captured, and not just now, perhaps even before 1994 elections, and I'm of the belief that the first capture really happened probably 2, 3 generations back. And now we're sort of just playing into that conditioning, even with our leaders, because I do believe that sometimes some of them move as though that they are not aware what's happening, and of which they may not be aware of what's happening because of that capture. So if they were taught certain narratives as children, and come into positions of leadership later in their lives while still holding to those false beliefs, they will enact policy based on a false beliefs. So we must accept that first capture. And the position that I think MK is presenting to, so it is an alternative. But my fear is that, I mean, President Zuma is a former head of state, and he's sort of been part of these processes. But I remain hopeful because I look at nations like Russia, of which he has ties with, and those nations are against certain policies that I think are oppressive and perhaps seek to further exploit the populations. So in that sense, I think MK can present a counter movement based on their policies that want to center the people and the needs of the people, as opposed to the current movement of government of national unity that is saying privatize everything. And then that's the only way the country will move forward. That's the only way the country will be stable. That's the only way the currency will be stable. And the talk of the currency, I always look at it as a threat. So if we do not abide by their policies, is the suggestion that they're going to collapse the economy. I know they've done that. They've said that during President Zuma's term, that if he doesn't bring back Pravin Gordhan as finance minister, they're going to tank the rand, of which they did. And we never really went back to discuss the points of the rand rigging and the implications of that as a rand issuing state and the citizens of that same rand issuing state.
My final question then to you is, this is very concerning, but by and large, this will go over the heads of very many South Africans, and they'll just accept the status quo. But in your opinion, we are truly stuck between two very uncomfortable options, the GNU and the MK party. Which do you believe is the better option? Or, is it both damned if you do it? Are we really between a rock and a hard place?
I don't think we are between a rock and a hard place, perhaps an uncomfortable choice based on our programming. We would look at MK as perhaps a dangerous solution as well, and how it's been framed in the media and what they seek to achieve and how they seek to. It's been sensationalized largely. But on the one hand, the government of national unity for me would simply be us going back to, again, the 1994 deal, where the people remain hopeful of their freedom and thinking that, well, the change has arrived, and then only to find out they've been given a 6 for a 9. And the oppression and the struggle continues, of which we still find ourselves in. I mean, most of the systems of apartheid still are amongst us, and we're still living amongst them. The spatial planning, the distribution of resources. I mean, you could name it. Whereas I think for MK, they sort of have a difficult task in actually proving to the citizens that they are who they say they are, given the fact that they have limited resources and support in their country. And so if they are pushing a counter movement, it'll be a very difficult task ahead to prove to the nation that this is what we are and this is really what we're going for. Because on the one hand, the one movement has a lot of support. Or I think most of our national media houses are in support of this idea. In fact, they program us even before it was announced. So there's a difficult task ahead for MK. This is a global general government of national unity is a global movement. In fact, it's part of the globalization agenda. So there's a lot going against MK and perhaps even us who believe in a different alternative for South Africa and perhaps the world.
MK is very, even though, they talk about, obviously, land expropriation without compensation, and those type of narratives come through from the MK. And I think that is frightening for the minority group, and very especially for the GNU. Are we then supposing that MK doesn't have the necessary support, the financial support, because they need to have the finances in place to be able to be a powerhouse? Whom do you suppose would back the MK? Because all the Western world is backing the GNU for their own interests. And in their theory is that for the salvation and the betterment of South Africa, like you've alluded to, that the rand doesn't collapse and so forth. Whom do you suppose is supporting NK? Because they do need support, they do need funds to move ahead. Though they have also made threats that if they're not part of the plan, if they're not heard, if they don't have a position at the table, they could incite riots, as we've seen July 2021.
The issue of funding is very important. Perhaps it's also part of the general struggle of a monetary system, a world monetary system, which has been privatized, that is in the hands of a few. So when you talk about funding, it's always an interesting question, because who is meant to fund it? Because of how monopolized the entire banking system in South Africa and the world is. For MK, I think they should call upon citizens who believe in the philosophy and the idea. I know for minorities in South Africa, it may seem like a challenging or a scary concept that you want to expropriate. But we must ask the question: is that the intention of MK to strip minority groups of perhaps land and all of the necessities of life? I don't think so. So we must engage MK to find out how are you going to go about when it comes to dealing with minorities? Because in Islam and in African religion, the rights of the migrants or minorities are protected in a way, perhaps not in the same way that you would define it in the circular state that we're living in. But they are there. And so we must investigate, we must find out so that we can support it. Because it would be a shame. In Cape Town, I said the same thing. It's a shame that the Muslim community supported the DA, considering the position that they were holding, or they hold, in fact. So in terms of funding for MK, I would like more minorities perhaps to look into the idea of MK. I am looking into the idea of MK to find out. And also I think Eastern nations that do believe in the same principles as MK should sort of step forward. I know Russia does believe to a great extent. The Middle East, there's a lot of similarities in terms of objectives of what we would like to achieve for our nations. So I would like to see more of that. In fact, the Muslim world, I would like to see the Muslim world take more action in South Africa and stand up for the rights of the people. There's the volume of sacred law, the Quran, deals extensively with the rights of the poor and fighting for justice. In fact, the entire book is about justice. And it's a sad state of affairs for me when I see Muslims sort of step back and sort of hide when the challenge has been put forward to say the rights of the poor are being violated, the rights of the widows are being violated. We must step forward and act.
I'm not sure if Muslim countries will come to the fore. I mean, they've done absolutely nothing as far as Palestine is concerned. So what hope do we have of them possibly, supporting any party in South Africa for that matter? But you know what? You never know. They could surprise us. But let's leave it there. Amand Hlela, wonderful talking with you. I do look forward to many more deep discussions with you regarding politics in South Africa. Take care, God bless, and salaam alaikum to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
8:53 News and Views moving on. Standing by to talk with us is Voice of the Cape Station manager on a very, very sad discussion that we're going to be having. But we will talk with Ghulam Fakir in a minute or two. Let's take a quick ad break.